Hey guys, hope all is well. Thought I'd do a little bit of a change today and go ahead and do a live stream. Maybe talk about the Spectre and the Meltdown bugs that there's been so much talk about lately. Can you guys hear okay? Is the audio coming through okay? I'm doing pretty well, guys. That's great. So I thought I'd do a little bit of a live stream today just to talk about the Spectre and the Meltdown bugs. Now, there's been all kinds of talk going on, lots of websites, lots of reading material. The last I heard was that Ubuntu was going to release their fixes today, yesterday actually, on the 9th. Hi TJ, how you doing? Hi Jan. Welcome everybody. That's good. Thank you for that information, Jan. So the Meltdown and Spectre, I've been reading up on it, and it's really spotty because there isn't a lot of information. Right now it's being kicked around between Intel for the chips, and they're actually providing updates through motherboard manufacturers or laptop manufacturers. And then you have Apple having to update for their computers, and Microsoft is passing along updates for Windows. And so I don't really have to concern myself too much with Windows and Mac, although I do have a Mac and I do have a computer running Windows, but I'm more concerned with Linux. Now, funny thing is, I was looking around today and I saw how to check Linux for Spectre and Meltdown vulnerability. And there is a little bit of a program that's being provided that you can run. And if you're not familiar with it, I'll show you how to get it. But I ran it at the command line, and you can see the results right here. Now this is Spectre and Meltdown detection, mitigation detection tool. Checking for vulnerabilities against a live running kernel. I checked it on this distribution, which is Debian running GNOME. And I'm using kernel 4.14.0-2 for 64-bit. And you can see that when I ran the script, it went through and checked and basically says I'm vulnerable. Then it goes on to mitigation 1, hardware, CPU microcode support for mitigation, yes. Now the microcode, I'm assuming, is going to be provided by Intel, or it'll come through the major distributions like Ubuntu, Debian. So I'm not sure how it's going to filter down to some of the other let's say smaller distributions, but I'm sure we'll find out. Hi Willem. So now Radwan, you're saying there's no need to use that script, just use dmessage with grep. Can you provide a little more information on that? So it's one of those things that I think it's so fragmented. I saw some information that the Linux kernel folks were working on this in early December. So evidently they got word, and they were kind of upset with Intel for not providing earlier feedback, since I believe Intel knew about this. According to what I've read, Intel may have known about this since April. But nevertheless, I'll be curious to see when these bugs get corrected. And it's going to take a lot of people, a lot of different organizations working together to get this resolved. So hopefully they'll come up with a solution for that. I don't know how much you guys have looked into this, whether or not you feel it's a big deal, but to me it's a big deal, because I'm a little bit upset that if Intel knew about this since April, then why did they drag their feet to notify and get the ball rolling on the fixes? And I'm sure it has a lot to do with money. Intel stock is going down, AMD stock is going up. I can tell you right now that if I go ahead and build another computer, it's probably going to be a Ryzen. Welcome to the chat, everybody. I hope the audio and video is coming through okay. Now, so that was topic number 1 on my list. Now, as you can see, when I started looking into this today, and I've been looking at it for a few days now, but today I ran updates, and the battle continues. And there's lots of information. So this is the script that I was telling you about. How to check Linux for Spectre and Meltdown vulnerability. This was released 2 days ago. And then, of course, what Linux users must know about Meltdown and Spectre, bugs impacting CPUs. So there's lots of information if you're interested in looking into it. On the Linux Mint blog has a security notice. And I'm sure that Linux Mint, being so large, that they will be following through and providing some fixes for all of their users who are using Linux Mint variations. And this is the Spectre Meltdown checker. It is available through GitHub. Now, one other thing I wanted to talk about, I'm going to bring up Distro Watch. And I was going through Distro Watch the other day, and I haven't been hopping all over the place or installing too many distros lately. To be honest with you, I've been installing variations of Debian, variations of Ubuntu. I've got one Manjaro distribution installed right now, their newest Manjaro, the GNOME desktop, which is one of their flagship releases. I've got that installed. So far it's running fine, but my only issue is, of course, Manjaro wants to control the boot process. When I install it and I am not able, and I don't want to let Manjaro control the boot process, it shows up on my grub screen, which is controlled by Ubuntu, but it doesn't function properly. It will not boot. I have to go into the BIOS, change to the Manjaro grub screen, and then it will boot. But that's typical Manjaro. Now, if you look at the page hit rankings, which is a little bit of a kind of a top 10 of Linux distributions, it's not 100% precise, but it's a good Tommy Norwood, what is your question? And while Tommy's typing out that question, you can see Manjaro slid into second place. Mint number 1, Manjaro number 2. Now, the only thing I'm concerned about, or I wonder about, Mint has several variations, and I'm sure they're all loaded into this number. Manjaro has several variations, and I'm sure they're all loaded into this number. Debian is Debian, so that's pretty much it. You basically create your own version of Debian. And Ubuntu, they have so many different flavors, but they don't appear to be rolled into this number. If you go down the list, you will find Xubuntu, you'll find Lubuntu. So it doesn't seem like it's apples to apples. So for example, if I added Xubuntu to Lubuntu and all the various Ubuntu, Kubuntu, all the various releases into this Ubuntu number, it would probably put it in second place ahead of Manjaro. So it's a little bit misleading. How do I get Blizzard games, Diablo specifically, to work on my Mint distro? Tommy, Blizzard basically in October issued an update that pretty much eliminated that possibility. I haven't tried lately. I may go ahead and give it a try, but none of the distributions that I'm running right now has Blizzard installed, and the reason is the method that I used to install it, and it always worked fine. I had Diablo running, no problem at all. But you had when I set it up to run through Wine, and I configured my Wine install, I would use Windows XP. So it would be basically disguising itself as a Windows XP computer. Blizzard discontinued support for Windows XP in October. So their software update in October basically killed Diablo and Hearthstone on my system. And so Wine, if you change the configuration in Wine from Windows XP to Windows 7, it doesn't run properly. Now, I think there may be a fix in the DirectX version that you're running, and I think it might be doable, although I paid a visit to the Blizzard forums, and people were up in arms. Linux users were up in arms, complaining that Blizzard had wiped out their ability to play Blizzard games through Wine. So at that point I said I'm not going to deal with the headaches, because every time Blizzard made a change I had to go looking for a solution to get the games to function properly. So that's where we stand. I may try it again. And Tommy, yes, you can ask a different question. Hey Zeb, welcome to the live stream. Yeah, Liberty Paul, I can relate. I I feel the same way now, and that's why I haven't really even been interested in going back and trying to get Blizzard to run. There's so many other games available for Linux now that, you know what, I can live without it. So most of the time now, on my Steam install, I'm playing Euro Truck, American Truck, and there's one other game that I just started to play recently that seems to be pretty nice. So I've got my gaming pretty much covered. Hey Garth, how's everything? Hope all is well. Welcome to the live stream. Okay, so Tommy says, I've tried 9 different USB Wi-Fi things. Which ones work on Linux? Okay, so USB Wi-Fi. I'll show you 2 that I have that work fine with Linux. Okay, this is our link. If you can see that. And this uses ArrayLink, 1200 megabytes per second, dual band Wi-Fi adapter. It's made by OurLink. If you look on Amazon, you can find that. So the OurLink with the RTL 8812 driver, that works fine. This one here is a slower one, 300 megabytes per second. It's a Panda Wireless. You can also find this on Amazon. They're about $25, I guess. You could probably find cheaper, but these 2 I can vouch for. They do function on my system. So if I can give you a little piece of advice, especially on Amazon, when you're looking on Amazon for a piece of hardware and you're trying to find out if it'll work in Linux, just go to the user reviews and put the search word Linux into the search and search the reviews that are related to Linux, and you'll be able to find things that work. Yeah, Linux is getting much better for gaming. Steam. Now I'm not using. I don't need the. I don't want the hassle of wine and wine tricks and play on Linux. To me, they're time killers. It takes a lot of time to get a game to run properly. All kinds of tweaks and bug fixes, and well, some of them are pretty easy, but lately I've just been using Steam, and I'm happy with that. And again, I don't play a whole lot of games, but the ones that I play on Steam are running fine. I guess the only 2 that I miss with Blizzard is Hearthstone and Diablo 3. Those there I used to play quite often, but that's the way it goes. Blizzard, I assume, does not consider Linux users to be worthy or important enough to dedicate any kind of attention as far as their games. It's crazy. Hold on one minute, guys. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, I'm back. So, yeah, I'm not putting a lot of time into getting games to work on Linux. There's so many of them that work fine through Steam. I'm pretty happy about that. So let me go on to one more topic. And the other day I was reviewing the new releases on the distributions, and I saw that Makulu had released their Lindows, this one here, Lindows distribution. Now, I had installed a prior version of Makulu, and I had lots of issues with drivers and bugs, and so the developer, Jacques Raymer, he paid a visit to my YouTube channel, and you know, I tried to provide constructive criticism. He wasn't too happy, so we had a discussion. I offered to help test whatever he needed, and that's kind of where we left it. So I saw that the Makulu Lindows build came out, and so I downloaded it and I installed it on an external SSD, and I'll tell you that it ran wonderfully. The driver issues that I had, I didn't have any driver issues this time around. Everything installed fine, no problems whatsoever. Let me see if I can pull up some information. Yeah, so the aesthetics of the distribution looks very much like Windows. The icons are very reminiscent of Windows. Uses WPS Office instead of LibreOffice, which is fine with me. There's a Makulu control center that has lots of useful utilities, and I really think that he's got a winner here. Now, it is a pretty heavy distribution. I believe it was around a little over 2 gigs on the download, and so but I installed it, and I'll tell you, I really liked it. I had no issues. Now, it is still an early release, and he's not calling it a daily driver, so I wouldn't use it as a daily driver until he comes out with the final release. But I will tell you that I would give it a thumbs up, especially if you're coming from Windows. You could slide into Makulu and be very happy. Lots of good programs available. Everything seems to function very nicely. Really, I think it's a terrific distribution. And I'll tell you what, Jacques has been with Makulu for quite a long time. He seems to put a lot of effort into it. And there is a chat where you can just click on an icon on this desktop and go into their chat and get questions answered. Now, I tried it, and lo and behold, I put a comment up in the chat, and Jacques Raymer, the developer, was there, and he was able to comment on my comment. So, you know what? I can't knock that. He seems to be working hard, putting a lot of effort into it. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, I understand about the criticism. He didn't take my criticism very well, but and he's pretty protective of his distribution. But this time around, I was pretty impressed. So, so you're saying that Blizzard works with Wine Staging 2.21 on Linux Mint. I'll have to I'll have to try that. Again, I haven't. I don't even have Wine installed or play on Linux because as I said, I haven't been messing around with that stuff much lately. Yeah, Garth. Yeah, so Jacques will not talk to you. Yeah, I can understand. I mean, he was kind of upset with me after my last video, but what are you going to do? You know, I think we're only trying to provide constructive criticism. So lately, I've been sticking to the major distributions, the Ubuntu releases. This is Debian. This is Debian with GNOME. And I was never a big GNOME fan, but I gotta tell you that it's a pretty solid desktop. Now I can feel that it's not quite as quick as LXDE. And so on another disk, I do have Debian 9.3 with LXDE desktop, and that it just feels much quicker. But for an overall desktop functionality, I think GNOME probably has a little bit of an edge for as far as LXDE, and so I've been splitting my time back and forth between the two. To be honest with you, I have Manjaro GNOME installed, but I don't use it a whole lot, and only because I was burned on Manjaro a couple times on updates, and so I tend to stay in distributions that I know are going to function reliably day in and day out. And so the last thing I need right now are headaches, and so I kind of stick to the tried and true. So Liberty Paul, you'll be very boring. No distro hopping for you in 2018. Yeah, you know, once you get to a certain point and you've hopped all over the place, at some point you kind of settle down and use the reliable, familiar distributions. This is just a simple Debian GNOME install. Now I had somebody asked a question about doing an open box install in Debian, and so I may do a video on that because I enjoy using open box. It's real fast. I like Debian, very solid, and so I've done it in the past, and basically you have to do a net install of Debian without selecting a desktop. Then you end up with a command line install of Debian, and from that point you install the OpenBox desktop and get everything working that way. It's a little bit of a project to get everything running perfectly. Now there's a shortcut you can use. You can do a Debian install with LXDE, and then from the login screen you can log into OpenBox. And it's not a true OpenBox install by itself, but when you log in through the login screen and you select OpenBox, it brings you to a plain black screen, and there's nothing there. You right click for a menu, and it's not even a dynamic menu, but it'll get you going. And so I may do a video on that sometime in the next week or two. I don't have any medical issues coming up until February 2nd. That's an important checkup, so I'm kind of taking it easy until then, and hopefully everything goes good. and we'll take it just one day at a time. So Lamer, you're going to use Linux Lite for 1 whole month. Well, Linux Lite is terrific. I have never had any issues with Linux Lite. Now, Linux Mint Debian Edition, yeah, I haven't tried that in a while, but I did like it when I tried it several years ago. Right after they came out with the Debian Edition, I tried it. So guys, that phone call I got was a little bit unexpected issue I'm going to have to deal with. So I'm going to shut down the live stream a little earlier than I expected, and I'll be doing another live stream tomorrow. So if you guys are around, I'm sure you guys got notified that I was starting the live stream. So I'll go ahead and do that tomorrow, and we'll pick this discussion up. So for now, I'm going to have to stop the live stream. I was going to go a little bit longer, but that phone call I got is just something that I have to deal with. So guys, I hope you're all doing well. Thank you very much for stopping by the live stream, and have a great night, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Take care, guys.